Keanu Reeves inspires me because he represents something rare in our world today, genuine humanity in the face of overwhelming fame. In an industry built on ego and image, he chose a different path. He rides the subway when he could take limousines. He sits on sidewalks eating lunch with homeless people when he could be dining in exclusive restaurants. He takes pay cuts so that crew members can get better salaries. But what moves me most is not what he does, but why he does it. Keanu has faced unimaginable loss, the kind of tragedy that breaks most people, yet he transformed his pain into compassion. He never lets his fame create distance between himself and others. He understands that beneath all the noise and spotlight, we are all just human beings trying to navigate this complex world with grace and kindness. His life teaches us that true greatness is not measured by box office numbers or red carpet appearances, but by how we treat people when nobody is watching, when there are no cameras to capture our good deeds. Keanu reminds us that vulnerability is strength, that humility is power, and that the most revolutionary act in a superficial world is to remain authentically yourself. This story is about the moment he shared that wisdom with someone who desperately needed to hear it, and how that single conversation created ripples of kindness that touched millions of lives. The gallery felt different tonight, not in any way Alexandra could name or point to, just a subtle shift in the air that made her skin prickle with awareness. She stood near the back wall, pretending to examine her own artwork while her chest tightened with each camera flash that lit up the main room like small lightning strikes. The voices around her had multiplied into a low roar that pressed against her ears, familiar faces now lost in a sea of strangers who somehow knew her name. Something had changed in the 3 hours since the doors opened, something she could feel crawling up her spine even as she tried to smile and nod at the compliments flowing past her like water. The attention had weight tonight, physical and suffocating, and she found herself counting breaths to stay present. Alexandra Grant had spent 20 years building her career as a visual artist, working in quiet studios and small galleries where art lovers would stop to truly see her work, to understand the layers of text and image she wove together. She created pieces that explored language and perception, collaborating with writers and thinkers who valued depth over trends. Her world had been one of meaningful conversations over coffee, of late nights mixing paint, and contemplating the power of words made visible. It was a good life, a purposeful life, even if it meant struggling to pay rent some months and watching younger artists chase viral fame while she chose substance. But 6 months ago, everything shifted when her collaborative book with Keanu Reeves gained unexpected attention. What started as an artistic exploration of shadows and perception suddenly became a media obsession, not because of the art itself, but because people were fascinated by their friendship. The tabloids created narratives that had nothing to do with reality, painting stories of romance and secrecy that made her stomach turn. Her private Instagram account that once had 800 followers now had over 2 million, most of them strangers who felt entitled to comment on every aspect of her life. Tonight was supposed to be her moment of validation, her first major solo exhibition at the Morris Gallery in downtown Los Angeles, one of the most respected contemporary art spaces on the West Coast. She had worked for 14 months on this collection, pieces that explored the nature of identity in the digital age, the gap between who we are and who the world decides we are. The irony was not lost on her that she was now living that exact tension. The gallery owner Marcus had warned her that interest was high, that they might need to extend the opening hours, but nothing prepared her for this. By 7 p.m., there were over 300 people crammed into a space designed for 70. By 8 p.m., the crowd spilled onto the sidewalk, held back by velvet ropes that made her feel like she was in a movie about someone else's life. Photographers she had never seen before called her name, asking her to pose next to her own work as if she were a prop in her own exhibition. A woman in an expensive suit grabbed her elbow near the sculpture installation, introducing herself as a producer from a major morning show. "We want you next Tuesday," the woman said, her smile sharp and practiced. "We are calling it the artist who captured Keanu's heart, ratings gold." Alexandra felt something crack inside her chest, a small breaking that she hid behind a polite smile as she mumbled something about checking her schedule. The producer pressed a business card into her hand and disappeared into the crowd, already moving on to her next target. She retreated to the small office behind the gallery, Marcus's cluttered space filled with art catalogs and coffee cups, the only place where the noise became muffled. Her phone sat on the desk glowing with notifications, the screen scrolling continuously with new alerts. 3,000 unread messages, 42 missed calls, her email inbox showing 900 new messages since this morning. Someone had posted a photo of her from tonight, and it already had 60,000 likes. The comments a mix of admiration and cruelty that made her hands shake. The door opened softly and she looked up expecting Marcus, but instead Keanu stepped inside, closing the door behind him with careful quietness. He was dressed simply in dark jeans and a navy jacket, his hair slightly messy from the October wind outside. He had texted earlier saying he would try to make it but was filming late, and she had told him not to worry, that she understood. But here he was, and the relief that flooded through her was so intense she had to look away. "You okay?" he asked, and the gentleness in his voice nearly undid her. She wanted to say yes, to be strong and professional, to prove she could handle this new reality. Instead, she heard herself say, "I do not know how you survive this," the words tumbling out raw and honest. How do you live with everyone thinking they own a piece of you, with strangers deciding who you are before you even speak? Keanu moved to sit on the small couch against the wall, his movements unhurried and grounded. He did not offer empty reassurances or tell her it would get easier. Instead, he was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence she felt truly seen for the first time all night. Outside the office, the party continued, the sound of success and celebration, but in here the world narrowed to just the two of them and a question that hung in the air like a prayer. She sat down beside him, the exhaustion of the evening finally catching up with her body. "I love making art," she said quietly, "but I do not love this. I do not know how to be what they want me to be." "Then do not be," Keanu said simply. Before she could ask what he meant, her phone lit up with a call from a blocked number. She ignored it, but then it rang again immediately and again. Keanu glanced at the screen, then back at her face. "You should probably get that," he said, something in his tone suggesting he knew what was coming. She answered with a hesitant hello, and a woman's voice came through, bright and invasive. "Alexandra Grant, this is Stephanie Chen from Reveal magazine. We are running a major story about you tomorrow morning, and I wanted to give you a chance to comment." The woman did not wait for a response before continuing. "We have sources confirming that you have been using your relationship with Keanu Reeves to advance your career, that this entire friendship has been calculated for fame. We go to print in 3 hours, so if you have a statement, now is the time." Alexandra felt the blood drain from her face, her mouth opening but no words coming out. She looked at Keanu, who watched her with steady calm, and somehow his presence kept her from shattering completely. "I have no comment," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper, and ended the call. The phone immediately buzzed with a text from the same number, a screenshot of the article headline already formatted and ready. "Artist uses Hollywood's nicest guy. The calculated rise of Alexandra Grant." Below it were photos of them together over the past 2 years, innocent moments of friendship now framed as evidence of manipulation. Keanu leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and when he spoke his voice carried a weight she had never heard before. "I need to tell you something," he said, "something I have never told anyone publicly, about the worst moment of my life and what it taught me about all of this." She set the phone face down on the cushion between them, her heart racing not from the article anymore, but from the vulnerability she saw in his eyes. The party noise faded completely as she turned to face him fully, and in that moment, she knew whatever he was about to share would change everything. The office seemed to grow quieter as Keanu spoke, as if the world itself was leaning in to listen. Alexandra watched his face transform into something unguarded, the careful composure he usually carried dissolving into raw honesty. She had known him for 3 years now, but she had never seen him like this, so willing to expose the wounds he usually kept hidden beneath kindness and deflection. "It was 2001, he began, his voice low and measured. "The Matrix had made me more famous than I ever imagined possible, and I had just lost the 2 people who mattered most to me within 18 months. He paused, his hands clasping together. I was doing a press tour in Japan, smiling for cameras and answering the same questions over and over, and I remember standing in my hotel room at 3 in the morning looking down at the Tokyo streets 40 floors below. Alexandra felt her throat tighten but stayed silent, giving him space to continue. There were thousands of people at the premiere that day, he said, all of them screaming my name, wanting photos and autographs, telling me they loved me. But standing in that empty room, I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. The fame that was supposed to make me feel connected to the world had actually built walls between me and any real human connection. He looked up at her then, his eyes holding a depth of pain that made her chest ache. I realized that night that I had two choices, he continued. I could let the fame define me, control me, turn me into someone unrecognizable, or I could decide that fame was just noise happening around me while I stayed true to who I was at my core. What made you choose survival? Alexandra asked softly. Keanu stood and walked to the small window overlooking the alley behind the gallery. The next morning I went for a walk without security or handlers, just disappeared into the crowded streets of Shibuya. I sat in a small restaurant and an elderly woman who ran the place brought me tea. She had no idea who I was, did not care about movies or celebrity. She just saw a sad person who needed kindness. He turned back to face Alexandra. That moment saved me, he said. It reminded me that underneath all the noise and cameras and headlines, life is just a series of small human moments, acts of kindness between souls trying to make sense of this world. I decided that day that I would never let fame take those moments away from me. Alexandra felt tears building behind her eyes, not from sadness, but from recognition. She had been searching for permission to reject the performance everyone expected of her, and here was someone who had walked that path offering a map through the darkness. But the choice is not just once, Keanu continued, sitting back down beside her. It is every single day, sometimes every single hour. The world will constantly try to tell you who you should be, how you should act, what you owe to the public because they made you successful. So how do you keep choosing? Alexandra asked. Keanu smiled, a sad knowing smile. You find your anchors, he said. For me it is motorcycle rides where I am just a guy on a bike, reading philosophy in quiet cafes, talking to strangers on the subway about their lives instead of mine. And when the noise gets too loud, I remember that woman in Tokyo and thousands of other small kindnesses from people who saw me as human. Alexandra's phone buzzed again, another journalist trying to get her reaction to the hit piece that would run in just over 2 hours. She looked at it and felt something shift inside her, a small spark of defiance replacing the fear. They want me to defend myself, she said. They want me to play their game, create drama, give them content to feed the machine. Keanu nodded slowly. And what do you want? He asked. She thought about the question, really thought about it. I want to make art that means something, she said finally. I want to have real conversations with real people. I want to wake up tomorrow and recognize myself in the mirror. Then that is your answer, Keanu said simply. The story they are running tomorrow is not about you. It is about the person they need you to be to sell magazines. You cannot control what they write or what people believe, but you can control your response. But what if staying silent makes it worse? Alexandra said. What if people believe their lies? What if this destroys everything I have built? Keanu leaned back, his expression thoughtful. The people who matter, the ones who truly see you, they will not believe tabloid gossip. And the ones who do believe it, they were never really seeing you anyway. You cannot control that, and trying to will make you lose yourself. A knock on the door interrupted them, Marcus asking for her to meet some major collectors. Keanu gently suggested 5 more minutes and Marcus nodded, closing the door. I do not know if I am strong enough for this, Alexandra admitted, her voice cracking. Keanu reached over and took the phone from her hands, setting it on the desk. Strength is not about being unaffected, he said. It is about feeling everything, the fear and anger and hurt, and choosing your response anyway. You get to decide who you want to be in this moment, not them. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. When she opened them again, Keanu was watching her with patient understanding. What would you do, she asked, if you were me right now? He considered the question seriously. I would think about why I started making art in the first place, he said. I would remember that the work matters more than the noise around it. And I would find a way to respond that felt authentic to who I am, not reactive to who they want me to be. Alexandra stood and walked to where her phone lay on the desk. What if I just told the truth? She said slowly, not a defense or an explanation, just the actual truth about what matters. What truth do you want to tell? Keanu asked. That fame is not why I make art, she said, her voice growing stronger. That kindness and authenticity matter more than headlines. That I choose to respond with grace instead of anger, even when people try to tear me down. He shook his head slowly. You would not be naive, you would be setting yourself free, he said. The destruction only comes when you try to fight the game on their terms. But if you change the terms entirely, if you refuse to participate in the drama and just speak from truth, you take away their power. Marcus knocked again, more insistent. She had to go back out there, had to face the celebration while knowing that in less than 2 hours a bomb would drop designed to destroy her reputation. Keanu put a hand on her shoulder. Whatever you decide to do, he said, do it because it aligns with who you are, not because you are afraid of who they will make you out to be. Fear is a terrible compass. Alexandra nodded and walked to the door, then turned back. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with your story, for being honest when you could have just given advice. We are friends, Keanu said with a gentle smile. Friends show up for each other in the hard moments, not just the easy ones. She stepped back into the gallery, and the noise crashed over her like a wave, but something had shifted inside her. The collectors were genuine art lovers who asked thoughtful questions, and talking with them reminded her why she did this work in the first place. At 11:30, the gallery finally cleared. Keanu had slipped out but texted her a simple message, "You have got this." She drove home through empty streets, her mind racing. In her apartment, she sat on the floor of her studio surrounded by unfinished canvases, the quiet space that had always been her sanctuary. She opened her laptop and her phone's camera, propping it on her desk. The red recording light blinked on, and she took a deep breath, looking directly into the lens with no makeup, no preparation, just herself at 1 in the morning. She opened her mouth to speak and found her voice steady and clear, the words flowing from a place of truth she had been afraid to access until now. The recording light glowed red, and Alexandra felt her heartbeat slow as she found her center. The camera felt like a confessional, a mirror reflecting back not just her image but her truth. Tonight, someone I deeply respect taught me something I needed to hear, she began. He taught me that fame is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens around you, and you get to choose whether you let it define you or whether you stay true to who you are. She paused, aware that in 30 minutes an article designed to destroy her would go live. In a few minutes a magazine is going to publish a story about me, she continued. They are going to say I am using my friendship with someone famous to advance my career. And I could spend the next hour defending myself, playing their game. But I am not going to do that. She leaned forward, her face open and unguarded. The truth is not found in arguments or defenses, she said. It is found in how we choose to show up in the world when things get difficult. I choose kindness over conflict. I choose authenticity over image. I choose to believe that the people who truly see me will not need my defense. Alexandra stood and gestured to the paintings surrounding her. I have been making art for 20 years, she said, long before anyone knew my name. I make art because I believe in the power of visual language to communicate truths that words alone cannot express. I make art because it is how I make sense of this chaotic, beautiful world. The clock showed 11:50, 10 minutes until publication. To the journalists writing these stories, she said, I want you to know that I see you. I understand you are working in an industry that prioritizes sensationalism over truth. I do not hate you for doing your job, but I will not participate in the drama you are trying to create. She sat back down, her voice carrying new strength. I have a choice in how I respond to this moment, she said. I can respond with anger and defensiveness, feeding the cycle that sells magazines. Or I can respond with grace and truth, staying aligned with my values even when it would be easier to fight fire with fire. Alexandra looked at her hands, then back at the camera. Someone told me tonight that life is just a series of small human moments, acts of kindness between souls trying to make sense of this world. I want my response to this attack to be one of those moments, a small act of choosing light over darkness. Tears built, but she did not fight them. To anyone else feeling overwhelmed by public scrutiny, she said, "Please know that you are not your headlines. You are not your social media metrics. You are the quiet moments when you create and love and show up. You are your integrity when no one is watching, your kindness when it would be easier to be cruel." Midnight struck and the article went live. Her phone began buzzing, but she kept her eyes on the camera. "I choose to believe that there is still space in this world for authenticity," she said. "I choose to believe that responding to hatred with kindness is not weakness, but the most powerful form of strength." She reached forward to end the recording, but paused. And to my friend who shared his wisdom tonight, she added with a small smile, "Thank you for showing me that staying true to yourself in the center of the storm is not just possible. It is the only way to survive with your soul intact. This is the way forward." Alexandra stopped recording and sat in silence, her heart pounding but her mind clear. She uploaded the video with no caption, no explanation, just raw truth. Within seconds it began to spread, something about the authenticity cutting through the usual noise. She turned off her phone and made tea, sitting by her window watching the city lights. She did not know what would happen next, but for the first time in months she felt like herself again, aligned with her values, anchored in truth. At 2 a.m. she checked her phone. The screen exploded with notifications, thousands of messages and shares. But instead of anger and mockery, the comments were overwhelmingly supportive, people responding to her vulnerability with their own stories of choosing authenticity. Then she saw it, a simple share from Keanu's account with 4 words, "This is the way." His massive following amplified her message, and suddenly her video was everywhere, not because of scandal, but because of radical honesty and grace. The journalist who had threatened her, Stephanie Chen, posted a response that made Alexandra catch her breath. "Watching this made me realize I have spent 10 years in tabloid journalism hating myself," Stephanie wrote. "I am done manufacturing drama for clicks. Alexandra Grant just taught me that there is another way." Effective immediately, I am leaving Reveal magazine. Alexandra read the words 3 times, unable to believe her choice to respond with kindness had created such a ripple. By morning, the video had been viewed over 2 million times, and a movement formed around the hashtag, "This is the way." Celebrities began sharing their own struggles with fame and choosing authenticity over performance. But what moved her most were messages from ordinary people, students and teachers and parents, saying her words gave them permission to stop performing for an audience that would never be satisfied. Marcus called at 8 a.m. breathless with excitement. "Every piece in your show has sold," he said. "But more than that, people are coming to actually see the art, to engage with the work, not just take selfies." 3 days later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was Keanu's sketch of a figure standing calmly in a swirling storm, and a note that read, "You changed the game by refusing to play it, proud of you." Morning light painted golden stripes across Alexandra's studio 3 months after the video that changed everything. She stood at her easel mixing paint, the familiar rhythm grounding her in ways fame never could. Her phone sat face down, notifications silenced, a boundary she had learned to protect. A knock on her door revealed Maya, a young artist clutching her portfolio, someone who had reached out asking for mentorship after her own painting went viral. "I do not know if I can do this," Maya said, sitting down with shaking hands. "I just wanted to make art, but now there are brand deals and expectations, and I feel like I am disappearing into what they want me to be." Alexandra poured tea, the ritual giving space to breathe. "I know exactly how you feel," she said. 3 months ago, I was having a panic attack, convinced fame would destroy everything I loved. And someone very wise taught me something that saved me." She told Maya about that night, about Keanu's vulnerability, about choosing grace over defensiveness. Maya listened with tears streaming, nodding as every word confirmed what she had been feeling. But it is not a one-time choice, Alexandra continued. Every day I recommit to staying true to myself, to creating work that matters rather than work that will get likes, to treating my art as sacred even when the world wants to treat it as content. How do you do it? Maya asked. Alexandra gestured around her studio. I create rituals that keep me grounded, she said. Every morning I spend an hour here before checking my phone, just me and the work. I say no to 90% of opportunities, keeping only ones that align with my values. And I surround myself with people who see me as human, not as a brand. She wrote 3 questions on paper and handed it to Maya. I ask myself these before saying yes to anything. Does this serve my art? Does this align with my values? And will I be proud of this in 5 years? If any answer is no, I walk away. They talked for 2 hours, Alexandra sharing strategies and wisdom. As Maya left, she asked, do you ever regret posting that video, putting yourself out there so vulnerably? Not for a single moment, Alexandra said. That video freed me from caring what people think. Yes, some still believe the tabloid lies. Yes, there are hateful comments, but none of that touches me anymore because I know who I am. The conversation sparked an idea. She called Marcus and pitched a mentorship program for artists navigating sudden fame, a safe space to protect creativity while building sustainable careers. Within a week, they had a name, the Authenticity Project, and within 2 weeks, 50 applications. She invited Keanu to the first group session. His response came quickly. I would be honored, but only if I can sit in the back and just be part of the group, no special treatment. Saturday morning arrived with 15 artists gathered, ages 19 to 62. Alexandra shared her story not as an expert, but as a fellow traveler. Then she introduced Keanu, who had slipped in quietly to the back row. Some recognized him immediately, but he simply waved and stayed seated, just another person seeking truth. People shared struggles and fears with compassion and understanding. Near the end, a young photographer asked Keanu directly, how do you stay grounded when the whole world thinks they know you? I remember that fame is just a story other people tell, he said, and I get to choose whether I believe that story or live my own truth. Every day I do small things that remind me I am just a regular person. Those moments are my anchor when the noise gets too loud. He moved to the center of the circle. The world will always try to put you in a box, he continued. Your job is not to fight the box. Your job is to simply keep being yourself so consistently that the box becomes irrelevant. A young muralist wiped tears. But what if being yourself is not enough, she asked. Then they were never your people, Keanu said gently, and that is okay. You are not here to be loved by everyone. You are here to create meaningful work and live with integrity. The right people will find you. The session ended with participants forming a support network. As people left, several approached Keanu not for selfies but to thank him for his honesty. He treated each interaction with full presence, proving through action what he taught through words. When the room emptied, Alexandra and Keanu stood together. You started something important, he said quietly, giving people permission to be human in a world that wants them to be products. I learned it from you, Alexandra replied. We teach what we most need to learn, Keanu said. Every time I remind someone else to stay authentic, I am reminding myself. 3 months later, the Authenticity Project expanded to 6 cities with waiting lists in 20 more. Stephanie Chen started a publication dedicated to authentic journalism, asking Alexandra to be a founding contributor. Together, they proved truth and integrity could exist in entertainment media. 1 year after the viral video, Alexandra spoke at a conference on creativity and mental health. Standing before 2,000 people, she shared the lessons that saved her. That fame is just noise while you stay centered in truth. That responding to attack with grace is more powerful than defense. That the world needs your authentic voice more than another performance. She ended with her signature closing. We live in a time that celebrates performance over presence, she said. But each of us has a choice. We can participate in the noise or create islands of authenticity. We can fight fire with fire or respond to darkness with light. The audience rose in ovation, her eyes finding Keanu in the back row. He nodded once, a small gesture of recognition, and she understood the deepest lesson. True kindness is showing up consistently, treating every interaction as sacred, staying humble in success and graceful in difficulty. Months passed and the movement kept growing. But the moment she treasured most came on an ordinary Tuesday. Maya texted a photo of herself in her studio, smiling with text that read, "Said no to a huge brand deal today because it did not align with my values. Scary, but I have never felt more like myself. Thank you for showing me the way." Alexandra smiled and returned to her canvas. This was real success, not the views or articles, but the quiet ripple of one person helping another find truth, who then helped another, creating a web of authenticity in a world that desperately needed it. She thought about Keanu's words from that first night, about life being small human moments of kindness. Wisdom is not in grand pronouncements, but in consistent daily choices to show up with integrity. Fame and success mean nothing if you lose yourself pursuing them. As afternoon light shifted in her studio, Alexandra added final touches to her painting, a piece exploring authenticity in the digital age. It emerged organically from her journey rather than market demand, and that felt exactly right. The world would keep spinning, headlines screaming, dramas unfolding and fading. But here in this quiet studio, Alexandra had found something the noise could never touch. Herself, whole and authentic and free, committed to creating ripples of kindness that would reach shores she would never see, trusting that choosing light, grace, and authenticity was always the way forward. This story teaches us that the most powerful response to a world demanding performance is radical authenticity. Alexandra's journey shows we always have a choice in how we respond to difficulty, that grace and kindness are not passive but active choices requiring immense courage. The lessons extend beyond fame or art. Whether facing public scrutiny or private struggles, the principle remains. We cannot control what others say about us, but we control who we choose to be in response. We can fight darkness with darkness, or be the light that transforms the conversation. Keanu's wisdom about staying centered in the storm applies to everyone navigating modern pressures. The pressure to curate perfect social media lives, to meet expectations, to sacrifice authenticity for acceptance. His example proves staying true to yourself is not only possible but essential for genuine happiness. Most importantly, kindness creates ripples we cannot predict. Alexandra's choice to respond with grace inspired a journalist to quit tabloid reporting, helped struggling artists find authentic voices, and created a movement touching millions. One moment of choosing light changed countless lives. The Authenticity Project represents what becomes possible when we stop performing and start connecting human to human. When we treat every interaction as sacred, measure success by integrity rather than metrics, and have courage to be vulnerable and real. So this story asks each of us, who will you choose to be when the world tries to tell you who you should be? Will you perform or stay true? Will you react or respond? Will you let fear guide you or anchor yourself in kindness and integrity? Because in the end, the noise always fades. What remains is the quality of your character, the integrity of your choices, and the kindness you brought to a world desperately needing more light. This is the way forward, not just for artists or celebrities, but for every human being navigating this complex, beautiful world with grace and authenticity.